Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. It was quite the headline Americans woke up to last weekend, a remarkably successful U.S. operation to depose Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and bring him to America to face criminal charges. While the bold move by President Trump has the potential to reshape the geopolitical realities of the Western Hemisphere, public opinion is divided. And this isn't just the usual partisan thing. Conservatives are of differing minds on this issue as well. Here to discuss this morning are General Don Bolduc, the 2022 nominee for U.S. Senate on the Republican side here in New Hampshire, and Representative Jose Cambrils, a Republican representative from Loudoun, whose family escaped Cuban communism in the 1960s. So unique perspectives, and we appreciate you both for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So, Representative Cambrils, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your origin story and why you support what the president did in Venezuela.
So, very quickly, my family escaped, first of all, from fascist Franco regime in Spain to land in Cuba. And my family had a couple of good years there, only to have to escape from the communist regime of Fidel Castro in 1965. So for me, I personally feel that this is a very good thing for the Venezuelan people, because my family has felt that oppression and of communism, and it's something that you just can't appreciate until you've been under that kind of a regime.
And you're hopeful that potentially there's going to be a domino effect, and that maybe Cuba is liberated at some point as well.
Yes, I think so. I'm hoping. I think this is just the first domino, and I think possibly Cuba. I think things are going on in Iran right now and other countries. I think this is very much like when Reagan and the Reagan years, when the communist countries in the Eastern Bloc started to fall one after another. I think you may see that.
General Bolduc, you were at the tip of the spear in Afghanistan, and you know better than most the truly fearsome power of the American military. When it wants to kill and destroy and do things, it certainly can. The question in this case is, should American leaders exercise that power in the way they did in Venezuela?
Well, let me just first say it's great to be here with the representative. He's a good friend, and I'm honored to be here. Secondly, there's no doubt Maduro is a bully. He's a thug, but we have many of those in the world that we have to deal with. And yes, our military, second to none. How about those operators? I'm proud to be part of that lineage, part of that legacy. Not only Afghanistan, but Africa and many other countries. My family did not escape from communism, but I've been in these countries that and worked in these countries, and you look at it, 10 tours in Afghanistan alone with the same kind of oppression for the people, and work there, not only doing combat operations, but humanitarian, under policies and strategies by both Republicans and Democrats that has failed. And this has the potential to fail big time. And it's not just president, it's the entire Washington establishment. They can't come together for the good of the country. And this is the problem that we have. It creates instability. You want to go in, you want to take Maduro out, that's fine, but now you got to deal with the repercussions of the instability. And who replaced Maduro? His people replaced Maduro, right? We created a regional instability issue. We got Brazil, we got Argentina, we got Colombia. We got the potential for this to really expand. Who was Maduro meeting with the day before we took him? China. China and Russia are in there. In 1823, we came up with the Monroe Doctrine to keep the Europeans out there and to preserve Latin American sovereignty. Well, now it's Russia and China that's the big threat. It's North Korea and Iran. It's terrorist organizations. 4+1. That's a real danger and a real possibility that this could implode. A hasty movement to remove a sovereign government is dangerous, and I've seen it before, and it didn't work in Iraq. We had 50 years of a policy of stability in the Middle East, and in 2003, we went in there and destroyed it all. And what did we end up with? Serious problems today. Look at Yemen, look at Israel, look at Syria, look at Iraq, look at Iran. These are hugely problematic things that require a long-term look and a communication with the American people. This isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue, and it should be solved by it. Liberty, justice, and self-government. That's what's most important, and that's what worries me about what we're doing throughout the world right now with our interventionist type of approach. And if I supported any of these kind of operations when I ran in 2022 as a Republican, the same people that are advocating this kind of stuff would have thrown me off the stage. I never would have won the primary, right? I mean, we have to be a country that leads with democratic principles. We have to be a country that shows the rest of the world our leadership. Diplomacy, economic support, and humanitarian assistance are the three things. Our operators went in there and they did what they've been trained to do over 3 decades. Not just one administration, not 2 administrations, but this has taken 3 decades. I've been involved in it for 3 decades. I've led these men, some probably the same guys that went in there, I have worked with closely in Afghanistan and in Africa. Hundreds of these types of missions, but we never, ever removed a sovereign leader except in Iraq, and look what happened. America isn't good at this, and neither is any other country. And we're just giving Putin a free pass in Ukraine, and that's wrong too. Thugs are thugs.
Representative Cambrils, what do you think about this? The level of commitment that is required to ensure this goes the way that is in American interests. You look back to something like, I mean, arguably the most successful, quote unquote, nation building America has ever done was in Japan. A monumental cost to break the will of that government and then reform
Germany,
that country.
Marshall Plan.
Well, there you go. But it was a huge commitment. And that's hard to do. Do you think the commitment is going to be there to make sure Venezuela turns out okay?
So, first of all, I agree with the general. This could blow up very easily. This is not easy to do, okay? However, the way that this was pulled off was, it just is a testimony to Donald Trump's ability to negotiate, okay? Because even though I love our military is the best in the world, they didn't just happen to do this all on their own. There was a lot of negotiating behind the scenes. I believe that the Venezuelan military was told to stand down. I believe that Trump negotiated some deals with the people there. I agree with the general. The big thing that needs to happen next is how is that power vacuum going to be filled? Okay, so temporarily, okay, we cut off the big snake's head, but there's 9 other little snakes that could grow big into being the next dictator there. It's not easy to do something like this, but I believe the difference is we're not going in boots on the ground like right away. I believe it was a strategic surgical strike. I believe that there have been some negotiated deals where there'll be some time here now to actually establish a democratic process of in an election. That's my optimistic hope, okay? It may not happen. It may all go the way Don said, because that's historically been what has happened. But I think Donald Trump is a different animal, and I think that this has been negotiated a different way. And at the end of the day, if like we said, if good men, don't do anything, then evil continues to prevail. So I agree with Don. Yes, we've had many failures in the past, like Vietnam and other countries, but we can't just stand still. We have to do something.
How does it strike you as a conservative, though, when the president says we're going to run Venezuela?
That's just his rhetoric. That's just the way he talks. Okay, I'm sure that he has negotiated who is running it right now, and it is, like you said, the new president there. She is horrible too. I think that's all temporary, and I think they've all been told to watch their P's and Q's. That they're, I believe, probably the military is really what's going to be running the country, because he cut some deals with them temporarily until they can actually have an election.
General, what do you think about that comment the president made?
Well, I think when leaders think out loud, it's very dangerous. I've seen it before. General officers sitting in a conference room saying, geez, I wonder why this conference room isn't blue. And then the next thing you know, you walk in and the privates are painting it blue, right? You got to be careful what you say. Your comments have consequences, not only here in the United States, but across the world. And when you say you're going to run a country without any other explanation, you're going to run into some problems. And look what happened. The Senate said, hey, wait a minute, we're going to pass a resolution that's going to pull you back a little bit, right? I don't agree with bombing boats. I think it's irresponsible. I don't agree with floating an armada in there. I think that's not necessary. I do agree, though, with stopping sanctioned boats and interfering. Now, 30 billion gallons, that only runs this country for a day and a half, okay? It's a big number, but it doesn't have much of an impact. The problem that we need to hear, the thing that we need to hear is, how are we going to support them diplomatically? How are we going to use soft power and hard power? How are we going to combine that so it's a balance, so that we can govern, we can help them govern? We don't want to govern them. And what it sounded like is we're going to run it until such time as they do it. Now, that may be the way the man talks, right? That may be his approach, and that's fine. We all have our ways of doing things. I'm not criticizing that. But what I am worried about, because I have decades of experience of everything falling short at the policy and strategy level, leaving the operational level with no guidance, and then we're just putting our guys on the ground who will do great jobs. They will be successful every single time, despite bad policy and strategy. They're that good. I love them. They are the ones that I respect the most in our military, is our men and women in uniform. The leadership, I always have, skepticism, and I was skeptical of myself, right? You always have to default to them. You put them on the ground, you want to make sure that they have everything that they need to do it. So what are we going to do? Diplomacy, soft and hard power balance, economic support, they need that, and humanitarian assistance. The thing about SOF is we operate direct action. We can go in there and pull a guy out, no problem, right? We can go in there and do all kinds of direct action missions, strategic reconnaissance, but we can also do everything else on the spectrum to include peacetime operations and humanitarian operations. So at some point, if you're going to look at stability, you have to work regionally and you have to work internationally. Really quick, I just want to interject to make sure, because we're kind of getting close to the end, even though it's a fascinating conversation. I just want to get your thoughts. If you think the president, as plain spoken as he is undermining the authority to operate in this hemisphere when he targets a country like Greenland, which is not flooding our country with drugs and is not a strategic threat to us.
Of course, again, he has very strong rhetoric, but the Greenland situation is a whole different strategical thing. So, let's face it, anything he says on any given day undermines this. I think this is a very important thing for Venezuela to have freedom again, And again, I agree with a lot of things that the general says, but what price can you put on hope? Hope is the single most important thing in the world, and the Venezuelan people, for the first time in 26 years, are now going to have hope. So I'd ask people like the general or other people that are critics to put themselves in their shoes, and they see this happening. They're looking to America to be able to. That's all they want, is that little bit of hope. Even like in Iran, the people there are rioting, and if they know they're going to have the air cover, they're likely to be able to have their revolution.
Well, gentlemen, amazing perspectives. We could do this for a whole half hour, but we got to hit the break. Representative Cambrills, General Bolduc, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Honor to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, and we'll be right back with some Democratic perspective on this issue and more from 1st Congressional District candidate Sarah Chudzinski.